Welcome to Scale Her Up, the Female Entrepreneurs Show with me, Brenda Hector. I'm a business growth specialist, helping business owners to develop themselves and grow their businesses so they can achieve their goals and enjoy the lifestyle they dream of. I'm on a mission to revolutionise the entrepreneurial landscape for women in business. In every episode, I interview someone who has an inspiring story or some great advice for women aiming to start or scale their businesses. If you're new to the show, take a moment to subscribe right now so you don't miss any upcoming episodes, and please check out the previous ones after listening to this. We have an awesome Facebook community. Just search for Scale Her Up and join in. Welcome to Scale Her Up and the Business Spotlight series. I'm Brenda Hector, and I've got Angela De Souza with me. She's the CEO of the Women's Business Club. Welcome, Angela. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me, Brenda.
So, look, I usually get everyone to start just with a bit of an introduction to your business. So tell us about the Women's Business Club.
Women's Business Club started back in 2013 with my bright idea of wanting to do business networking differently. And so that's really how it started. I just got fed up with the way business networking went and just wanted to do something that I felt comfortable in, but also really got value from. And so set up a particular way of doing networking with women in a way that I loved it and I was hoping others would. And that's how we started, but we are so not a networking company anymore. Even though we still do networking, we've just evolved so much that now I try and get people to understand that we're not a networking company. Otherwise, we're just limited to that little box, which is always a challenge. But that's how we started.
So, yeah, what else do you do then? That's how you started. What do you do now? What have you expanded to become?
So it's evolved over the years, and I'll try keep it short, but because it's evolved quite a lot. But it's evolved. We right at the beginning of our journey. So it started just with me, but I very quickly realized that I couldn't grow on my own, and so tried a franchise model. And very quickly grew with other leaders leading networking events. From there, also realized that women needed a lot of support and training. And so we started doing half-day training workshops. So we very quickly became a training company, so networking and training. And then at the end of the year, we had what I kind of tongue-in-cheek say our first conference. Technically, it was our first conference, but really what it was all the networking groups just coming together for a Christmas special. But I count that as our first conference. And at that conference, we did our very first awards. And the award ceremony was just meant to be entertainment. I didn't take it seriously. There were tongue-in-cheek awards, you know, the Loch Ness Award for the member who paid her fees and we never saw her again. And the Mother Hubbard Award for one of our members had 7 children. And so we had all sorts of awards, plus we had Business Mum of the Year and Business Woman of the Year. And so it was meant to just be some light entertainment as part of our end of year celebrations. That was the end of year 1. But what I didn't realize was how important awards are and how much it encouraged the women. Within the next week, I saw your people on radio, you know, some of our winners popping up in the press. And the lady who won the Businesswoman of the Year award actually said to me that it gave her the courage and the confidence she needed to keep going because she was new in business. And then I realized the awards are so important, you know, it encouraging, celebrating, acknowledging what women are doing is really something that we needed. And so we kept that as a more serious part of our business model. It became less of a joke and we had more, you know, serious categories. That was year 1. And then from there, we moved on to bringing out our Women's Business magazine. I wanted to put something tangible into the women's hands at our events, but at the same time, wanted to give them an opportunity to showcase their business a bit more, to advertise, to share their stories. And then obviously a few years went by and then the big COVID hit. And that, again, we had to pivot. Like everybody else in the world, we had to go online. And in person is very important to us, you know, meeting together in person, you can never replace that. But we had to pivot. We had to take everything online and do our best with what we could, same as everybody else. We were all in the same boat worldwide. But this did give us the opportunity then to explore reaching out to other countries, because up to that point, I tried to keep things inside the UK. But because the whole world was online, it was, well, why don't we just reach out to women worldwide and see if we can support them? And we did. And again, we just did our networking online. We did our conference and our awards online. We did whatever we were doing in person, we took it online. So when things came back to normal, which, you know, there is no such thing now as normal after COVID, but when things kind of resumed, we kept the online. We went back to in-person because I still firmly believe something special happens when we meet in person, and we can't replace that. However, there was so much value in the online as well, because we were reaching more women. We were able to not only look at removing those borders, but we could reach women worldwide, but also women who had, you know, accessibility issues or weren't able to get to an in-person event for whatever reason. We were now able to reach out to them as well. So that was really positive. So we kind of grew in that way. During lockdown, we were able to really spend time tweaking our systems and our processes to make sure that we could always do things globally. Anything that's brought to our team now has to be, can this be scaled globally? If no, then we're not going to do it, because we have to consider our worldwide audience. And then the last major change came this year, beginning of this year, where we started developing our own tech. So we've built our own platform. We're building, it's never going to end. I don't believe tech projects ever come to an end, but we're building this tech for our users to try and see what we can do to challenge some of the barriers that women face. So one of the first major barriers that we're working on is getting more funding to women. And so we're building a peer-to-peer lending module in our platform. We also want to get more mentors for women worldwide, especially across borders, you know, mentoring each other from different backgrounds, different cultures, different countries. That can be really rewarding. You know, we can learn so much from each other. So we're building our peer-to-peer mentoring module. And there's so many things we want to do, just tackling whatever barriers women are facing in their business or their career, seeing if we can leverage what's available from a technology point of view to support them. Because there's so, you know, the advancements in tech is incredible these days. It's become so much easier to do something a little bit clever, whereas before it was, you know, really, really tricky. And so that's our journey from way back 2013 all the way to today. We're really focused on supporting women in their business and their career as best we can, using whatever, you know, tools and resources are available to us.
So how many countries are you in now?
Last count, we had a presence in 92 countries.
Wow.
And what we've been working on is making sure that we're accommodating them in their own currency and their own language. This is something that's very key to us. So we've kind of we've been working directly with PayPal engineers and developers to be able to offer every currency for every country. That's been a real challenge because some countries are very closed. But we've got there. We should be launching any day now, the multi-currency aspect. And then the language thing, we're going to be using AI for that. That's not released yet, but it's so important that people can be able to be supported in their own language and their own currency. And then the third thing that we want to do, but this will take years to do, is really understand the cultures. So it's no point us going in, you know, middle-class white women going into rural Africa and saying, this is how you should do business. It's just not relevant. You know, the challenges there are just something that in many cases we can't relate to. And so working with people on the ground, working with other business mentors on the ground, learning about the challenges they're facing, the cultural challenges, the gender challenges, and then looking at offering real solutions for women in their different countries. And so one of the things that we have launched that I didn't mention was our Women's Business Voice podcast. And that was our very first attempt at capturing stories from women across the world. It's been absolutely humbling and mind-blowing doing that. You know, hearing what empowerment means in Uganda is so different to what empowerment means to me. You know, for them, it really is saving their life, allowing them to have their own income in their own business. That's true empowerment in Uganda. It saves lives, whereas for us, maybe empowerment means something else. And then recording the podcast in multiple languages, that again was interesting, but I didn't want the podcast just to be an English podcast. And so I've had all kinds of languages it's just been interesting, you know, chatting with people and having them jump between English and their language, or trying to record the podcast twice, once in English, once in it's been very interesting, but I'm determined to get there, you know, make sure that everybody feels supported in the way that they genuinely need support, not just us prescribing this is how to do it, which obviously doesn't work for anyone except for us.
So it's a very customer-centered approach then, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's not
Yeah,
about what you
absolutely.
want to deliver, it's about what they need.
Exactly.
Everybody's different. Yeah.
Yeah. And it takes time to learn that, because obviously there's a lot. But the more we grow our team, the more we work with locals, have local representatives. So we have quite a good presence in South Africa, for example. I grew up in South Africa, so I'm a little bit more familiar with South Africa than other countries. But we have quite a few leaders in South Africa. So they'll feed back to me, well, actually, these are the challenges we're facing now. You know, there's an electricity shortage, and we have to plan our businesses around, you know, power outages. Well, that's new to me, you know, but we have to learn. And so having local leaders in each country, they can feed back the real challenges that women are facing. And then we can try and not only support with generic business principles, because that applies everywhere, marketing, sales, cash flow, you know, that doesn't matter what country you're in, that applies, but also looking at the specific challenges that they're facing. And if we as a global community can offer support.
I think it's amazing. I think it's well done, and I'm totally on board with your why there. You touched a little bit on your background, so I'd just like to find out a little bit more about Angela.
Okay.
Yes. So what led you to where you are now?
If I look back at my career, if you look back at my CV, it's very eclectic. It doesn't make much sense at all. But if I've looked back now, I can see there's certain things that drive me, and it doesn't matter what industry I'm in, what sector I'm in. I'll always respond to certain things, and I'll explain what I mean. So I was born in the UK, but I grew up in South Africa. And I really value even that, you know, having a different perspective on the world. You know, it's really served me well. But I was also a very young mum. And so I just thought that was my life. I was going to be a mum, and I was perfectly happy. You know, being a mum, I loved it, still do, you know. And so I never had any career aspirations. I didn't have any education as such. I didn't even finish high school. Um, and so didn't think I was capable of anything. But one thing I believe, that we're all born with something special inside of us, all of us, and that will keep rising up in any context. And so that would rise up in me in, you know, being a mum, or organizing family events, or organizing church events, or you know, whatever I was doing, even though I didn't have a formal career as such, I always seemed to be the one who would connect people. That's the first thing that has been a common denominator throughout my career: connect people, and try and help people see the best in themselves and help them realize the best in themselves. And then just management, you know, organizing, and making sure everything is well managed. And those are the key things that I've looked back over my career. I've worked in construction, I've worked in quantity surveying, I've worked in pest control, I've worked in retail, I've worked, you name it. Like I say, there's no common thread. But now looking back, those things would always come out. And so Women's Business Club is just really the way that I'm connecting people, supporting them, and helping to find ways to empower them. I think that's always been there right from the start. So I don't have a nice, tidy story on that front, where some people, they knew what they wanted, they went to university and they studied. I mean, I'm 50 and I only know what I want to do now at university. I'm considering studying now, you know, at 50. But some people have it nicely figured out, and that's amazing, you know, if that happened to them. But I think I've learned more, you know, trial and error, and discovering myself first, and then finally later on in life figuring out what I really want to do with life.
Um, I, we've had a different journey, but I'm the same as you. I'm 50 and I'm on my third career at least. Yes, so but I think that you said I've not had a straightforward career. That we shouldn't expect that, I don't think. I would love the listeners to be thinking, well, it doesn't matter if I've not done the same thing for the last 30 years and been on a progression there. I think you learn more by having a experience in different roles and different industries. So
Yeah.
it probably all comes together to make sense when you're 50.
Yeah. My youngest daughter's 15, going on 16, and she's at that point now doing GCSEs and trying to figure out her life plan. And I just say to her, try everything, do everything, just do stuff, and you'll find yourself in it. If you commit too young, and like my husband, he did his degree later in life, a little bit later in life, just because that was what he should do. And then he only realized what he really wanted to do even later in life, and then went and did another degree because he found what he really wanted to do. Had he tried lots of things, instead of just thinking, I have to get a degree so I can get a job, so I can create an income, he might have found his passion a lot sooner. And so one of his regrets really is that he didn't try more things and find what he's truly passionate about earlier in life. And so with my advice to her is get good grades, do your best, but try loads of things, and you'll find yourself in that trying.
I love that. I'm writing that down. Try everything and you'll find out what you're passionate about. That's a brilliant lesson for the listeners and the viewers. So so you've been in business with the Women's Business Club for more than 10 years. What have you learned over those 10 years? What have you learned about Angela?
So much. I think, as I said previously, I can't harp on about it enough, but knowing yourself is the most important thing to know. Really discovering yourself, knowing what fills you, what drains you, what you love, what you hate, what you're passionate about, what you're not too bothered about. Like, just knowing yourself as much as possible, I think, is the core to any business or career. Otherwise, you get exhausted trying to be somebody that you're not, trying to fit in where you don't. It took me so long to be okay with not fitting in. I'm an introvert and I'm the awkward one in networking rooms, which is ironic because I lead a company that does networking. But I'm okay with it now, whereas before I would feel so horrible. I'm okay grabbing a coffee and standing on the side of the room where the extroverts will go to the middle of the room and announce their arrival, but that's okay. And that's a minor example. But, one of the most liberating experiences I had was walking out of a job interview and just saying to the people interviewing me, this job is not for me. You don't want me. I wouldn't be good at this, because I knew who I was not as well as who I am. And that was just amazing, to be able to know what not to do is as empowering as knowing what to do. And so lots of trial and error. But I think the key is, learning about myself first, who I am, before what I should do, because the doing will come more naturally if you're really in touch with who you are. What was your question? I think I've waffled on and I forgot the original question. Was it lessons learned?
Yes, what lessons learned over 10, 11 years in business?
I think another important lesson to me is, people matter. I think in the beginning of business, you can get quite desperate. You've got bills to pay, or you might have a new staff member. You're not used to that responsibility. And business can very much become about, paying the bills, paying the staff, getting the money in. And you get very numbers focused. And I do believe you should always have your eye on the numbers. If you run out of money, your business is closed. So you've got to be really good at the numbers, but not at the expense of the people. And so I think I've done a lot wrong, and I've upset a lot of people in the process because I've been so focused on the numbers, trying to survive, just trying to get through another payday or another month. And yet there's so much more freedom and liberty that has come when I've thought, people first. Let's just understand the person better. Let's figure out what's going on with them, and how best to serve them through Women's Business Club. And then deal with the money side of things. And I don't know if that makes sense. I know what I'm trying to say, but I may not be articulating it very well. But at the end of the day, it's the people who are paying the membership. It's the people who are paying the sponsorship. It's people. And so those relationships with people, I try to guard them as best I can, even difficult people, unreasonable people. One of our got it up on my board. That's what I'm looking at. One of our values at Women's Business Club, intentional kindness. Intentional kindness. It's not about how you feel. It's the right thing to do. And so our whole team is trained. We be kind even to the most difficult, most rude people. We don't have to accept abuse. That's not what I'm saying. But sometimes that person is just struggling with something that we don't know. And if we take the time to value them and to be kind to them and hear their story, some of those people now have turned around to be our biggest clients or our biggest raving fans. So that's really important lesson that I learned. I still find it hard, the balance between having to get enough money because tech development is it's a bottomless pit. The more money we can get and put in it, bye-bye money. But, so balancing that need to keep generating a good amount of income so we can produce what we want to produce, along with taking the time to just sit with people or listen to people and not see them as a target, as a number, but as a person. And in some cases, it's a case of they're not the right person to be a member right now. I shouldn't be selling membership to them. It's not right for them and we can't help them. That's been an incredible lesson. And I think I will always be learning that. I don't think I'll ever reach a place of being the best people's person and the best money manager. I think it's an ongoing, lifelong journey to get better and better. Other lessons, I think the other main lesson, I'll just have one more example, is just what I alluded to earlier. Just, you've got to keep your eye on the numbers. It's so important to keep your income more than your expenses, and to really do whatever's needed to keep that little buffer in between, because once you run out of money, it can be very hard to raise money if you need to. The banks aren't generous anymore. The investors out there are just looking for one or two particular things, and if you don't tick their boxes, you're not going to get investment. And so, we've bootstrapped for most of our nearly 12 years, and just really looking at making sure that even if you don't like spreadsheets and numbers, even if you're not one of those people, I love them. Like I get lost in a good spreadsheet. But even if you're not that kind of person, you have to fall in love with the numbers, because that's the business at the end of the day. I won't waffle on. I could speak all day on the lessons I've learned, because I think learning on the go has been my university education.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're not trying anything and things aren't going, you learn through failure, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Failure's most powerful teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's think about so you mentioned having to bootstrap, and that there's not a lot of money available there to be invested in businesses, and it's a particular challenge for female-led businesses. I've had it here, the Rose Review. I've got
Yes, less than 2% of female founders are getting funded these days.
Yeah. So what's your advice to someone that's looking to start or scale and looking for funding? Where would they go?
I can't say that there's one rule that works, one recipe that works. I've just chatted to loads and loads and loads of people. When I started considering taking on investors, I didn't know anything about this. I just thought bootstrapping was the way you built a business. I didn't know there were other options. A lot of women are in that position, but it's also a case of chatting to those who have done it. Experienced women who have done it. So one of our members, I know that she had done 2 rounds. And so I just picked her brain. She didn't mind. I asked if I may, and just learned as much as I could. Then I found some courses online, did some courses and some webinars, and just really educated myself. Until one day I was doing a funding course, an investing course, and I realized I knew everything that they were teaching. Not that I knew everything about investing, but I think I'd educated myself as much as possible. I'd had a mentor, I'd had a coach, like I'd done everything that I could have done, and now it was time to act. It was time to actually use this knowledge, and that was the hardest part. Once I got up to date with how things work, my goodness, I'm quite a confident person, but suddenly I was back to zero confidence. Going out and asking for investment was just horrible. Just horrible. I feel like I'm begging, it was just horrible. So again, it's just doing it a lot until you become confident, until you know your stuff. And again, I realized at one point, every time I was pitching, I realized I wasn't doing well. I wasn't even pitching, I was just having conversations with people. And then I could see the little gaps where I was not doing well. And then I'd fix those gaps until one day I was chatting with somebody, practice pitching on them, and I realized I knew my stuff. I know what I'm looking for. I know the value, I knew my stuff. And so I think what I'm trying to say is it really is a journey, either that or get an expert, but still it's your business. You have to know what you're looking for. You have to know your boundaries. Not all money should be taken. Not all money is good money. Some money comes with strings attached that you don't want. And that money is going to do more harm than good. And so some money is just not worth it. So that's another thing to learn, is really be sure of who you're taking on board, because and what they want. Some of them, they just put the money in, they want their return out. Some of them want a seat on the board. Some of them want to be, actively involved. In which case, do you like them? Do you get on with them? Do you think they're going to be bringing value to your business or just taking over? So much to consider, so much to learn. One other lesson I learned in the area of finance that one of our members who is an accountant said, she said, business debt is not the same as personal debt, because I fear debt. I was like, not borrowing a penny, like just won't go there. But to be honest, if I didn't learn and get comfortable with debt equity, we wouldn't be in business today, especially during COVID. I had to learn how to borrow well, what our borrowing limit was, where to borrow funds from, really get clever with the small print, because there's a lot of lenders out there, like 40-50% interest rate if you don't read, you don't read things well, which is nuts. And I've come up with some clever things as well for raising funds when I'm in a pinch, which I will never advise. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell anyone, because I don't want to advise it. It would be bad advice. But I had to, and it worked for me. And I was like, okay, if it weren't for that little creative solution, then again, we may not be in business today. So it's a whole nother world. But I think my key would just be to make sure you educate yourself on the ins and outs of it. Because again, if you borrow too much, or if you connect yourself with the wrong person when you're borrowing, again, it could put you out of business.
There are lots of stories out there, aren't there, of businesses that have made the wrong choice. That's set them back.
And one of the ladies that I initially spoke with, she said to me, her only regret was taking on investors too soon, because now they own 20% of her company, and her company is doing really well. So that was the other thing, to maybe hold off a bit. And so that was her bit of advice as well.
So I'm just picking up from what you've said there, is like asking people and learning from others, which is obviously, that's a big part of networking, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
The right people that can help you with the challenges that you're facing in your business, or I guess I see yourself, and probably myself a bit as well, as just connectors with, connecting people with the right people that can help them at the right time.
Absolutely. I love doing that. I think that's so important. It's just talking to as many people as possible when you're in a certain stage of your business or facing a certain challenge, because there's never any one right way to do things. It has to be right with you. You have to align your decisions with your values. There's some things that I just won't do, or, I was asked to do something last week and I'm like, I'm not doing that. That's not, there's no integrity in that. I won't do that. And so it's so important that you're chatting with lots of people and then figuring out what's right for you. And if you're a true trailblazer, if you're a true innovator, I find sometimes you have to make the decision, the unpopular decision, that nobody else agrees with you, but yet in your gut you still feel that's the right decision. Then you have to do that. And that's where, I look at people like Richard Branson or Jeff Bezos or all of the greats, and they didn't follow any rules or recipes. They went with what they knew was right, and they made those scary decisions. And so sometimes we have to do things based, the unpopular choice, but you just trust that this is the right thing for your business, then you have to do it anyway.
I love it. I love it. You just used two great examples of great business people, but they were both men.
I know
Who,
it's very hard to find female examples.
yeah, I mean, do you have, can you think of anyone who should we be looking to and learning from in terms of women?
Honestly, I struggle with that. All the books I read, all the podcasts, everything I listen to is all men. And I can't tell you why. Um, I've never figured that one out. But one thing I have found with so far, because I love watching the Netflix true stories about businesses, and reading the books and everything. One thing I found, and I do a lot of it, one thing that's consistent across all of these stories is that they just never gave up. They were just stubborn. They just never gave up. They all have different backstories. Some of them had funding, some of them had no funding, some of them had dyslexia, some didn't. Some had a business degree, some didn't. I mean, the Nike story it's amazing. I love the Nike story. But all these stories, in all of them, you see that there's a point where they could have quit and they didn't. That there was a point where they didn't have the money, or they didn't have the resources, or the press were attacking them, or even the David Beckham story. I know it's not a business, but it shows us the same thing. It's like he could have quit, but he didn't. He was practicing football on the side when his whole team rejected him. Who would do that? None of us would do that. And so that's the consistent thread that I've observed, is just not quitting. And so sometimes when I hit a wall and I'm like, this is the end, we're going to be out of business tomorrow, I'm like, well, let's see what tomorrow brings, because today we're still in business. And sometimes that's what it's like. I get to that point of, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but today I'm doing it. Tomorrow's problem is tomorrow's problem. And then just grit your teeth, hold on, and get through these rough patches. I don't know why I can't quote a woman that I would say has the same story, that just has that resilience and that grit and has done something remarkable, like the greats, the Nikes and the Amazon and Virgins and whatnot. Do you have any examples? Is
Oh,
anybody you admire?
yeah, I was thinking there's one that I can think of. I run a business book club, so we read a business book or a self-improvement book or a business story. And we read a book called Let It Go by Dame Stephanie Shirley.
Oh, I
Are you
haven't heard
familiar with
that.
that? So she came to the UK on the Kinder transport at the start of the Second World War, and she started a business that she was using work stay-at-home mums that were doing. So she was in the tech industry, and she built an amazing business, but she also had a son who had autism, and she spent a lot. She's now I think she's the only person that's been in the rich list and has come off the rich list because she's been giving her money away. So
Wow.
she's got an amazing, I mean, she's obviously quite elderly now, but yeah, she's the only one that I can think of off the top of my head that
Yeah. All the other women on the rich list, they've inherited, it's family fortunes that were started by a man. So that's interesting. I'll look that one up, definitely.
and maybe the body shop lady, I can't remember
Oh
her name.
yes, Anita Roderick. Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
That's true. She did a fantastic job there.
yeah. So yeah, there are there, but then the number of people that do really build amazing businesses and get to the top, they're not that many Richard Bransons and Jeff Bezoses in the world. There are lots of people running much smaller businesses that are doing a really great job and are,
Yeah.
creating jobs and paying taxes, that's supporting our economy, and there's the small businesses that are having a big impact. So
Yeah.
I
And what
think
is greatness really? You
Mhm.
know, if I think of the most amazing inspirational woman, I would think of this lady in Uganda that I interviewed on my podcast. Doesn't even speak English. We had to have a translator. And she came from nothing and saved up with the help of Zena to open a laundromat, a laundry. And now she's, she's serving several of the major hotels in her village, outside of her village in Uganda. Like, that's great, and that's why I love featuring those sorts of stories on our podcast, because she would never otherwise get on the global stage, but now we can say, look at this woman, look what she done, look at how she did it. And maybe that's true greatness. Maybe the way we're measuring these guys is just, pence and dollars
And I think
and
the purpose
reach.
of the purpose of my podcast, very similar to yours probably, is that I want other people to listen to these stories and think, oh, they're just like me. If they can
Yes,
do it, so
yes.
can I.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly why I like to capture stories as well.
So I wanted to just ask you also about people. So you said that people are so important, and I guess you can't grow a global franchised organization in 90 odd countries without finding the right people to support you. So how have you built the people around you? How do you find the right people to help you grow your business?
That's really hard. It has been and remains a challenge finding the right people. One of my I wouldn't say biggest regrets, but something that I would do differently if I were to do it again is I would start with a co-founder, or I'd have people start with me. I wouldn't do it alone, because it's much harder doing things alone. I'm very blessed to have an amazing husband. I wouldn't be in business today if it weren't for him, because every time I want to quit, he's my cheerleader. He's like, but this is the key thing he says to me. He says, but look how far you've come. And he makes me look back and measure back against my own success story, rather than looking out to other people, and rather looking to the future of measuring to where I still want to get to. And sometimes I have days when I say, I'm just a complete loser and I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm terrible. I have a real pity party. And, I couldn't have done it without him, because he just says, but look how far you've come. 5 years ago, you weren't doing this, or look at last year, you weren't doing this. I was like, oh, okay. I'll suck it up and keep going. And so, having those people who just love you, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's business associates, but somebody that's always for you and always sees the best in you. I think everybody should have one person like that. Even if I failed in business now, I know I would always have his support. And so I think that's really important. Find that person. Hopefully, if you're blessed like me, you're married to them, but if not, find them. And then also my children, my eldest two daughters, again, incredible support. So I'm very blessed to have strong family support around me, whatever I choose to do. The business relationships, now that's a bit more tricky, because people I felt so connected to, felt like they became family, staff members or business advisors, sadly, they're just not, what's the word I'm looking for? People go, people leave, if you can't, you can quickly find out which of your staff really care about what you're doing. The day you say, oh, your pay is going to be a bit late, we had a financial problem this month, and suddenly you quickly tell who's really behind you. I know people have bills to pay, but very quickly you can tell when money comes into it, people run, they scatter. And that's always been hard, because I don't want to say love people, it sounds fluffy, but I really do. I really care about people, and I really bond and connect. And I really get myself hurt all the time, because I'm like, no, people don't always feel that way. They're just in it for whatever's there for them. And then when it's not there for them, then they're gone, And so those relationships I find harder. I do have some incredible, business support around me, men and women. But I keep my distance. I try and guard my heart, if you know what I mean. I try and make sure that I don't get attached to people, because it's business. It's not family. It's not friends. So anyway, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's one of the things that I'm still figuring out. Like, who can I have in my business that's going to be in it in the good times and the bad times?
I love, yeah.
Those people are hard to find, and you don't know until the bad times hit if they are that person, unfortunately.
So there's something you said there that got me thinking about the bad times. And you said, every time I want to quit, my husband reminds me, look how far you've come. Okay. But every time you want to quit, I just think for people listening or starting or struggling with their business, thinking when they get to the point that they want to quit, that's okay. Lots of people want to quit, but like you're saying, it's the pushing through and keeping going. So yeah, any learnings from you on going through that process of when I feel like I want to quit? How often have you felt like you want to quit?
My goodness, all the time, regularly, several times a year, if not more. I did quit my first business. And I think it's important to say that it's okay to quit. There are times when something is not working, and it's okay to just face facts and say, this is not doing what I wanted to, this is not serving me. And it's just time to pull the plug. That was really hard. I didn't know how hard I would take it, actually. I think I grieved like 6 months. I didn't realize how personal it was, how attached I was, but it was the right thing to do. Looking back, the business, I just wasn't the right person. It wasn't the right time, and I didn't have enough skills and experience, and I didn't have enough support. I didn't have enough money. Like, I didn't have a whole bunch of things. Maybe if I was lacking one, I could have pushed through, but I was lacking too many things. And so it wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for my health. It wasn't good for my family. It wasn't good for my finances. And so I made the decision to quit, and I don't regret it. Now, knowing what I know now, looking back, if I did the same business, I think it would work. But I think it's just as important being okay with pulling the plug on something. There's a lot of wisdom in saying that this is just not working. That's different from the times when you know it could work. You have a lot that's going right. There's one little thing going wrong. Can you push through that one little thing? And is it worth it? What's the end goal? So for me, one of the reasons that I stay in the game is just understanding the end goal, both for the business and for me personally. What do I want to get out of it? And what am I doing with the business that's serving the women of the world, really? And so that keeps me going as well. My why. And also, I'm not getting any younger. And I always say, I have one more mountain to climb. This is my mountain. I don't want to start something brand new. If I quit, what am I going to do next? Like, I'm 50, and then I'm going to have to spend another 20 years building something. An overnight success usually takes around 20 years. That's what I tell people, because you need that long-term mindset, right?
Yeah.
So that's another deterrent from, if you're young, maybe you can, try a few things and quit and try again and quit and find yourself. But when you get a bit older, I think you measure your time differently, and you're like, what can I really give myself to? What do I want to give myself to? Is it worth it? And I think that helps the decision-making process as well.
Brilliant. I've give myself to, as it's like total commitment, isn't it, to your business? Or yeah, I think that's a brilliant brilliant way of thinking about it. So I could talk to you all day, Angela, but I'm going to ask you one last question. If you could go back to 18-year-old Angela, what advice would you give her?
Oh, that is a tricky one, because I don't regret the journey I've been on. It's helped me discover who I am. I wouldn't tell her to go to university, because I would study the wrong thing. I only know now what I would study. I think the best advice I could give 18-year-old Angela is discover who you are and own it, confidently own it, because everything else will come out of that. Because I had no confidence at 18. I was the shyest person, not only an introvert, but just terribly shy, because I lacked so much confidence. And I think if I cracked that at 18, I think everything else would have come a lot easier. You know what I mean? Like, I struggled most of my life trying to be someone I'm not. Why? Everyone's different. Everyone's unique. So I think that's what I will commit to. That would be my advice.
Oh, I love it. Brilliant. And it works for all of us, not only 18-year-old Angela. It works for everyone who's listening.
Yeah, at any age.
Yeah. Angela, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure having you on. You've been in my network for a long time, and it's the first time we've met, and I'm delighted.
It's been lovely. It's been lovely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Scale Her Up, the Female Entrepreneurs Show. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes, and join our Facebook community at Scale Her Up. Please connect with me, Brenda Hector, on social media and drop me a message to let me know how you're enjoying the podcasts, or even better, pop up a review. I'll finish by reminding you that only 1 in 3 UK entrepreneurs are female, and men are 5 times more likely to scale their business to over 1 million in turnover than women are. If we started and scaled our businesses to the same extent as men, it would add £250 billion to the UK economy and provide millions of jobs. Ladies, you can do it and make a massive difference.